Thomas Oliver Mumford. I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, on May the 12th, 1925. I was raised pretty much on the Delmarva, on the eastern shore, or Delmarva Peninsula. Yeah, in a town called Berlin, Maryland, Selbyville, Delaware, Berlin, Maryland, and Salisbury, Maryland.
Yesterday,
Pearl Harbor. I was with a friend of mine. It was on a Sunday,
1941,
and we both had our girlfriends with us,
a date which
and I was
will
at his
live
home,
in infamy.
in fact, on the floor
United
in
States
front of the
America
fireplace, and when the announcement was
suddenly and
made
deliberately
that
attacked
at Roosevelt, we
by
heard that
naval and air
over the radio.
forces of the Empire.
We at the
of
time
Japan.
I was 16 and he was approximately maybe a couple of years younger than me, or a year younger than me, and we just wondered then how it would affect our lives. We were naturally not used to having announcements of war, especially this close to home too. So we organized a group called the Minutemen. The Minutemen were town protectors, a local group of men that got together, and you put together any kind of a rifle or shotgun or anything you may have, and we wore jeans, and I can remember us marching down the street in this small town, maybe about 2,000 population, and we were going to protect the town. And I guess there was about 30 of us. It could have been a pretty comical sight, I guess, but we were serious in our methods of wanting to protect the town, our local town. And we also had Civil Air Patrol, and we were spotters in any type of plane that would fly over. But we'd call it into a central location just to identify it, whether it be a Piper Cub or some other type of small plane, private plane. There were 6 of us, I remember, and I have a picture in my album there of the fellas, and that was taken on the corner. We had like two corners, just typical town that you would see in Norman Rockwell or something else, just a drugstore where you hang out. And they snapped our picture out in front of the place we went away to be drafted in Baltimore. And when I got up there, I passed physical for Navy, Army, or Marines, or anything I wanted. And I said, well, I don't want to be a reserve. I want to be a regular Navy. And they said, well, you have to sign up for 6 years if you're regular Navy. And I thought, I don't care. So that's the way I went. And mine, even though I was drafted, I'm USN instead of USNR. I did not stay in for 6 years because they allowed certain rates to get out because they had a multiple of them, and that's when I chose that chance after about 3.5 years. I just felt as if the Navy, you get 3 square meals a day and you have a clean place to sleep, and I did not want to be on land. I'd rather be out in the water, and eventually, of course, I got into flying. Bainbridge, Maryland was the boot camp, and from there, let's see, after boot camp, shipped down to Naval Air Station down at NATTC, I think it was called, down in Memphis, Tennessee. Anyhow, it's a naval training station, and that's where we learned radio and radar operation. And they were training. They were training pilots there in biplanes, and from there we went to gunnery school in outside of Jacksonville, Florida, and learned a lot about gunnery. And from there we went to Miami to join our group in the squadron, pilot and gunner, and myself. This is a torpedo bomber, and this is what we were training in. This turret gunner sits up here, which we're all trained in that too. And I'm aviation radioman. There's my door that goes in there, and his feet hangs down in front of me. I feed him up 50 caliber machine guns, bullets,
right,
for his machine gun. I have a 30 caliber in the stern, underneath, and that's for strafing as we come out of a glide bomb. This plane will not dive; it will glide. If you dove it, you'd probably never pull out of it because it was one of the largest and heaviest planes, single engine it was in World War II. So probably the largest. And the pilot sits up here, and it's really heavy. It's a heavy plane, and it was right at home landing on a small aircraft carrier. The tail hook was back here in the stern, and when it landed, you have 10 cables to hook into. And if you miss the cables, then you got about 3 sets of barriers or cables are stretched across higher up you could crash into. And if it's really rough sea and you don't hit any of that, if you just bounce off, then you go in the ocean. We have wing guns, and we carry torpedoes, rockets underneath the wings. And we could carry one torpedo, one large torpedo underneath here to bomb bay doors.
Right.
And of course I was in charge of all that as far as bombing, setting the bomb up, radar situation, arming the bombs, and there's buttons to push and handles to push and all this stuff. And then we have we could carry 2 500-pound bombs instead of a torpedo, or 8 200-pound bombs. So, and mainly towards the end of the war, after we had a lot of practice with dropping torpedoes when we were in training. But see, it was 1944 and 45. After Midway, for instance, we started using these planes more for bombing missions than torpedo runs.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and the bombing mission too. When we'd come down and glide down like this, and incidentally at Iwo Jima, the ceiling was only 5,000 feet when we were doing our bombing runs most of the time because it was cloudy like it is today. And we had to make low runs, which was very dangerous. And when we pull out of the bombing run, my job was to strafe, just make sure they wouldn't be firing back at us. After we pulled out of a mission, out of a bombing run, they would come out of their underground holes and run out and try to shoot at us, And meanwhile, we were shooting back at them. I can recall tracers. I was bouncing tracers, and not to be bragging, but evidently I must have got some good training. But I was bouncing tracers off the barrels of their guns, their anti-aircraft guns. I remember seeing them hitting there, so I knew I was right on the spot. Well, I left out of San Diego on a LST. My pilot and gunner and myself were on board to replace the same pilot and another gunner, and that got killed at right at Lady Invasion. That's where the ship was on. The ship was at Lady, Luzon, and Iwo Jima. We missed Lady, but we replaced that extra crew on board the Bismarck C. And we were on LST, and it was really rough between San Diego and Hawaii. First bombing mission was in Luzon at the Lingayen Gulf, and that's when we were taken back to the Philippines. And we were flying. Well, we flew a number of days anti-sub patrol during the invasion, but we also bombed bridges and dropped 500-pound bombs on bridges, and we also bombed and strafed Japanese barges. At least they looked like barges. They could have been some type of small, like a destroyer, escort, something like that. But we ran 4 of them right in the ground. They were going down a small river, and they all sort of veered and just went aground. And we strafed them and so forth. And then we also we used rockets, and we bombing some churches that had the Japanese stored the ammunition in churches. So we had to blow the churches up. So that was pretty much our main mission in Luzon, and that was February, right around February the 9th was the initial invasion. That invasion of Lingay off in Luzon. And then, of course, from there, we made our way back to an island somewhere, and then on to Iwo Jima.